Alright, so here's the video for lesson number 10, Angles in a Triangle. There are two things that I asked you to do for homework assignment for this lesson. First, I asked you to try some of these more challenging questions, and there's just 3 of them. And then I asked you to try the actual homework assignment itself. I'm going to actually suggest that you try the homework assignment first, because these are a little bit easier, and then try the more challenging questions second, just because the pictures are a little bit more challenging. All right, so let's take a look at the homework questions first. So this was on page 52 of your packet. So for that first question, I noticed that there's an isosceles triangle. Because this triangle is isosceles, I know these 2 angles are going to be congruent to each other. So if I know that those 2 angles are congruent to each other, they're the same size. So I know a triangle is going to be 180 degrees. If I subtract 54, I get 156. That has to be split evenly between the 2 congruent angles. So if I take 156 and divide by 2, I get angle 1 is 78 degrees. Now there's a couple different ways of looking at that. So if you didn't do it that way and you made both of these x since you don't know them, you could do it that way too. Your equation would be x plus 24 equals 180. If you solve that, you're going to wind up getting the same answer. All right, let's look at 2. 2 uses the exterior angle theorem. So I know these 2 interior angles add up to be this exterior angle. Again, this is not the only way of doing it. This is just the way I would want you to for right now. So I'd say angle 2 plus 37 equals 117. Subtract 37. So if I do 117 minus 37 in my calculator, I get 80. So now I know angle 2 is 80 degrees. Number 3 is another isosceles triangle. I know these 2 base angles are the same, so this angle is also 2x minus 5. We also know that all of the angles of a triangle have to add up to 180. So if I do 2x minus 5 plus 2x minus 5 plus x, that should equal 180. If I combine like terms, I have 5x minus 10 equals 180. Add 10 to both sides, and I get 5x equals 190. Divide by 5, and I get an x value of whatever 190 divided by 5 is, so that's 38. I want to check. It said just solve for x, so I know I don't have to do anything else other than that. I could go through and find the measurements of the base angles, but it doesn't ask me to, so I don't have to. For number 4, I have to use the exterior angle theorem, so I know those 2 angles are going to add up to this exterior one. So I know the exterior angle of 6x minus 32 is equal to x plus 3x plus 8. If I combine some like terms, equals 4x plus 8, I want to move the 4x. The reason why I'm moving the 4x to the other side is I want my x's to be positive whenever possible. So now I have 2x minus 32 equals 8. If I add 32, add 32, I get 2x equals 40. Divide by 2, and x equals 20. Again, I just had to solve for x, so I'm done there. Number 5 says, in a diagram below of triangle ACD, B is a point on AC such that ADB is equilateral. This is a huge hint. Equilateral tells us that this triangle ADB has angles of 60. If I know that angle 60 right away, I know this angle is 120 because these 2 are a linear pair. It then says that triangle DBC is isosceles where DB is congruent to BC. Now let's just take triangle DBC for a second. So if I just look at triangle DBC for a second, DBC, these 2 are congruent. This is 120, meaning these 2 angles are congruent. So if I take 180 and subtract 120, that gives me 60. Well, that 60 has to be split evenly between angle D and angle C. So if I do 60 divided by 2, Well, angle C then becomes 30 degrees. All right, so now that we've done the homework assignment part of this assignment, let's go back to the challenging questions part. I really want you all to try these, even though they're challenging, just to make sure that we are able to do some of this. So, first things first, I look at number 11 and I see a couple different triangles, two of which I'm actually going to use. So, I'm going to redraw the big one here. This is 56, and these two sides are congruent. And I'm going to redraw the isosceles one here with angle 1 in there. So if I just had this first triangle with a vertex of 56, I would do 180 minus 56. So if I do 180 minus 56 in my calculator, I get 124. The 124 has to be split evenly over two separate angles. So both of those angles would wind up being 62. If I divide 124 by 2, that's where the 62 comes from. So in that individual picture, that's where that angle would be. In the original picture, I'd have a 62 here. This whole angle would be 62, not angle 1, but that whole angle. So I already kind of know that angle 1 is going to be smaller than 62. Now if I put that 62 here, that means I also can put it here. Well, if that angle is 62, I know this angle is 62 because this is another isosceles triangle. Meaning if I take 180 and subtract 62 and 62, whatever is left winds up being angle 1. 5, and we get 51 degrees. So now I know angle 2 is 51 degrees. Angle 13 is next, and angle 13 is interesting because it really requires you to kind of put together what we did in lesson 9 and this lesson. So lesson 9 told us that we could kind of draw in auxiliary lines or add in lines to a picture as long as we continue a certain line segment. So if I just continue here and make an auxiliary line here, well, I can figure out what this angle is because I know 180 minus 72 minus 30. Whatever that comes out to be is what, 78 degrees. So if I do 180 minus 72 minus 30, yeah, 78. So that means this angle is 78. Well, if that angle is 78, I know this is a linear pair. I should be able to find the other angle attached to it. So if I do 180 minus 78, I wind up getting 102. So that's 102 degrees. Well, now if I just look at this one little triangle that I've kind of created, I'll highlight it in red. So if I just look at this red triangle, I should be able to figure out what that angle is there. So if I do 180 minus 102 minus 25, I get 53 degrees, so this angle is 53. These two angles, angle 3 and this angle of 53, are a linear pair. So if I do 180 minus 53, whatever is left there winds up being my answer for angle 3. So that's 127. So if you're looking at this homework assignment, the questions on the page that actually says homework, those are the important ones. Even that last one, that's actually a Regents question. Okay, if you got these other more challenging ones, you're even better shape, but we're going to keep working on them. So if you're still struggling with those, don't stress out over it. Okay, hopefully you're having a great weekend. Hopefully you're watching these videos to help you with the homework assignment if necessary. If not, you can kind of just scroll through them and just check your answers.